running it through your mind, talking to yourself about it can help you reiterate that information, but then also retain it for the future.
Active recall.
Yeah, it's the best. I just talk to myself about like certain things and I'm like, yeah, I remember that. My name is Natasha and I'm a fourth-year journalism student. So I always knew I wanted to study journalism from a very young age. I was always interested in the writing aspects of journalism and storytelling. I think for me it's more so the focus on telling people's stories. Like everyone has a different story, a different path to where they got to today. And as for TMU, I knew I wanted to go to one of the best institutions. I ended up going with TMU because I wanted to also mesh my love for sports. So my first year was challenging in the sense of I had to like make new friends and try to like find my way around campus, getting used to all of the buildings. There's a lot of buildings, some near like the TRSM building or the buildings that are, past Kerr Hall. So I had to get used to all those buildings on campus, and I think that was the main challenge that I had faced. Something that I wish I knew before starting university was that not everyone is going to understand your perspective on a piece or on work, especially in the creative side, like on the journalism side of it. It's mostly up to you and the work that you produce. The angles that you take, the stories that you tell are all your points of views and your perspective on what you think is important or how the story should be told. But I think coming in and being able to understand people's criticism doesn't always mean that they don't like your work. It means that they may see something or they may not understand something that can benefit your piece. And so I think for me, if I knew that beforehand, if I came into university knowing that, I would have been able to grow and become a better learn constructive criticism in a more calm manner than when I joined university. And I didn't want anyone else giving me their perspective on my piece because I thought it was my work, should be how I did it.
That's your growth mindset.
Yeah. So the difference between learning in high school and learning in university, I think, is mainly the structure. In high school, like in general, my day was planned out from 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. and I had a task in each hour. It was classes or lunch or whatever it is. It was all planned out for me. Whereas with university and the university learning, it's kind of left up to you to understand the aspects or the topics discussed, what you want to take from each class or each discussion, and how much of it you want to integrate into your passions or what you're trying to study. So I feel like everyone has their own version of what makes a good student, but to me, I think the most important thing is staying organized. The more organized or on top of something or on top of your work or your tasks you are, being able to organize all of that information into like either a calendar or, writing it down in a planner will help you to be a good student by staying on top of all of those tasks. So I prepare to attend a lecture by checking the course outline. So that is always posted at the beginning of the term, but weekly before each class, I'll just make sure to check it to see if there are any readings that I need to do beforehand, any notes from the previous week that I've took that I should probably go over, if they, tie or like lead into the upcoming class. I'll just make sure to go over all of that and kind of prep myself just in case, the professor talks about any of the readings or anything that we learned from last class. At least I'll have the idea or I'll have a refreshed idea of what was spoken about previously. If I don't have time to do all of my readings beforehand, I'll still just skim through them. Usually the beginning and the end of a piece are where the main ideas of the article are, and just being able to at least like read a little bit through that can help just get a grasp of what the main idea is of the piece. Usually we have like in journalism, we have several articles to read which all speak about different topics and different things. And so because of that, they can be pretty lengthy articles sometimes. So just reading the beginning, maybe a couple paragraphs in the middle, especially if they have subheadings or titles, that will help you kind of understand what each part is talking about, and then the ending to the piece. The most challenging times for me when I'm part of a lecture are my online classes. You're doing them from your room, from your bed, or from anywhere that you want to, because it's an online class. And so being able to take those classes and treat them as a normal class, like an in-person class, is probably the most beneficial. Being able to block out a certain number of hours each week or each day for that class and focus on doing that work and finishing that work. I keep myself engaged during a lecture by focusing on being in an area without any distractions, focusing on finding a space or finding a room that there's no distractions, there's no TV playing in the background, or you don't have a separate computer to watch something else. And I think just sitting in that room and like focusing and treating it like an in-person class, so there's no other distractions. Yeah, you may have your friends with you, but just focusing in on the class, taking notes at the same time. Taking notes actually helps keep you most on track when you're understanding or trying to like listen to a lecture, because you want to write down what is being thought, and you're focusing on understanding the lecture and paying attention to it when you're taking notes. Don't skip class as a first-year student, and here's why. A lot of what is spoken or discussed during class may not always be available on the slides later. And this is because, especially in the creative side or like on the journalism classes, a lot of the thoughts that are accumulated by students. And so the discussions that are had in class are based on topics or ideas that students bring to the class. And not everything is typed on the slides afterwards, and those are important and key discussions that you may miss because you may not understand what the topic was, or you may not understand the full depth of what was discussed in class because you just decided to review the slides at the end of it. So in a high school learning experience, the curriculum is more so, structured to teach one thing to everybody. And everyone, takes what is being taught, what is being learned. But while it's in university, the different electives, the different classes, the different types and forms of lectures, the way that the professor teaches also is different in high school. And so with those lectures, you're understanding the things that you want to take from them, the topics you want to take from them, the aspects you want to take from them. You may find something more interesting on the business side than, on the engineering side, let's say, or the communication side, than whatever is being, or what is being thought as a proper lecture. So if I need to miss class, my first instinct would be to email my professor. As the years go on, the classes get smaller, your professors know who you are, and they know if you may not show up to class. And so if you have an emergency, or if you can't make class for whatever reason, at least letting them know beforehand that you won't be there will, one, alert them that you're not missing class just for the sake of missing class, but you actually have something going on. And it's better to be upfront with them and to communicate with them than for them to, like, let's say, give you a 0 on something that you missed in the future. So if I miss a class, the best way for me to make up the material is to ask my classmates about, what I missed. Was there anything important that the professor spoke about or discussed during that class that I missed? And then asking them if they have any notes. I may not be able to either understand all their notes, or I may take something different than what they have, but at the end of the day, it's still something that, is feasible for me to understand or to look at in order to understand what was discussed in class. So for a first-year student, it would be beneficial to go to office hours, even if you find your professor intimidating, because you'll get a sense and understanding of, one, how they teach, their lecture style, but then also the way that, you may understand them in the grading or marking scheme, because they will give you a sense of, what they're looking for as part of your assignments, what to keep note or keep track of as part of their lectures, and you'll know how they discuss certain topics and certain things. So it can help you get more prepared for your upcoming lectures and assignments. Even if you find them intimidating, it's best to go and meet them at their office hours. When it comes to note-taking, it's important to highlight the key words or key phrases that you need to understand, or that is important for your overall learning about a certain topic or a certain aspect. Catching on key phrases or key words that are mentioned during a lecture and writing them down can help you understand a concept in your own words to your understanding, which is what you want to get at the end of a lecture, is being able to understand a concept and explain it in your own words. Not writing too much, avoid writing too many notes. Not everything that the professor mentions or notes is important. Just take into consideration things that you, like certain topics or certain words that you may want to research and learn about more later. Those are important words that you can write down and to learn about more, that can help aid your understanding about a certain topic. I've seen quite a few different note-taking techniques or skills that my peers use in other programs. Mostly it comes with highlighting what they think is important or what's important to them, because that shows that they've understood it, they've taken a concept, but they're picking details that are important to them, and that's how they study. That's how, a concept comes to life for them. I've also seen other people just basically list notes and then organize them by subheadings or by titles, just to make it more organized. And when they go to study later, if they're looking for a particular topic or a particular subject, they know under which category, which heading it falls under. So after a lecture, in order to retain information learned, usually maybe the next day or the night of the lecture, going home and being able to read through your notes, saying that this is these are the topics that were discussed today. This is where I can apply this concept or this keyword. Running it through your mind, talking to yourself about it can help you reiterate that information, but then also retain it for the future.
Active recall.
Yeah, it's the best. I just talk to myself about certain things and I'm like, yeah, I remember that. With lecture notes, if there are any gaps or questions I have, going to the professor and asking them your questions, or bringing them to the following class and bringing them up as part of a discussion or a group talk can really help benefit and fill in those gaps when it comes to the notes I have. Understanding those topics, understanding those concepts from the questions that you come up with may also be things that other students have questions about. And so asking those questions can help the whole class at some point to fill in those gaps, or maybe even have a more in-depth, detailed discussion about a topic that you had a question about.